Hello, everybody. Very nice to see you all digitally. My name is Peter from Fathom, and we're going to go on a little bit of a journey from expansion to adaptation. Something I'm quite passionate about, and something I've experienced is, why does it take so incredibly long to deliver major national infrastructure projects? Any change to the natural and built environment has this huge number of knock-on consequences. Let's take, for example, a new airport. Can the local power infrastructure handle it? Are the hospitals prepared? Is the transport able to deal with the increase in transit? But the reality is, when we introduce new infrastructure, it is a slow process. It's fairly linear, and despite your experiences on various projects, in the grand scheme of things, it is fairly predictable. And yet thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of our brightest minds collaborate for many years to make sure that the construction and operation is as smooth as possible. This has been a driving force in our human journey so far. But of course, we are now experiencing another driving force. What you can see there is an example of a 1 in 1,000 storm in London for a 2050 for a certain climate scenario. And I don't know if you can see there, but if you know London, you know Heathrow is there. And whilst the image is a little bit small, it is fairly inundated with water. This new driving force is different. It's sudden, fairly heterogeneous, and really quite unpredictable, which is important. Hopefully you have started to see more and more of the donut economic model. For a long time, we've been going this way, and our infrastructure delivery machine and various processes and regulations such as Network Rail GRIP, National Highways PCF, be very focused on this sort of expansion. Not that they don't take into account environment, obviously increasingly, but it's fairly linear from the requirement of new infrastructure to delivering that new infrastructure, going from nothing to something. Kind of looks a little bit like this: predictable linear progression of urbanization, providing basic needs. And we now have this infrastructure delivery machine, which is critically quite easy to invest in because it has a fairly high degree of predictability, because we have a lot of evidence and experience based framework to mitigate uncertainty, to deliver that socioeconomic ROI. So it's quite easy to get things moving. The counterfactual to that we are now likely to be experiencing, potentially even more than new infrastructure, is adaptation. We need an infrastructure protection machine. The problem is it's not easy to invest in because of the unpredictability. But we still need an evidence, experience-based framework to mitigate that uncertainty and deliver the socio-economic and environmental ROI, so we can live in that safe and just space for humanity. So what do these systems look like? I'm just going to go back one. So climate models provide evidence and experience-based data to help us understand where we may need to implement our infrastructure protection machine. The problem is, a lot of these climate models for a long time, whilst extremely complex, they're not perfect. They generally run at a very low spatial resolution, somewhere in the sort of 100 to 150 kilometer range, giving us a broad understanding of what might happen in these larger regions. There are, of course, high resolution model into comparison projects, but organizations such as Fathom, taking it down to the lower resolution, means we have a greater view, a better view on where, for us, it's to do with flooding. For other organizations, it may be wind, it may be extreme heat, it may be any other of these perils. So I'm just going to talk about the power of combining lots of different people working together to bring a higher resolution view to where the climate might strike, as it were, in these extreme weather scenarios. And hopefully I'm going to be able to play this video for you with audio.
CREDO, the Climate Resilience Demonstrator, is a climate change adaptation digital twin. The digital twin combines a description of assets from the energy, water and telecoms networks with data from flood simulations to resolve the effects of flooding on individual assets and the corresponding cascade of effects across the combined network. The data in the digital twin are accessed as a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph uses ontologies to represent the assets, their operational state, and the relationships between them. The ontologies are hierarchical. Core concepts are defined separately from specializations of concepts that are specific to each network. This approach is extensible and is fundamental to achieving interoperability between data from the different networks. The design of the digital twin supports a distributed architecture that can combine data hosted by different providers. The structure of the knowledge graph is exploited to cascade information through only the parts of the graph that are affected by a given scenario. The computational efficiency of this approach will become increasingly important as the coverage of the digital twin grows. This example considers a 1 in 100-year storm under worst-case climate projections for the year 2070. The depth of flooding caused by the storm is shown in these blue patches. Assets that experience problems due to the storm are highlighted with red rings. An asset can be selected to view details about it and investigate the cause of failure. In this case, the power state is reported as false, meaning that the asset is out of service. However, the water depth is negligible, so the asset itself is not flooded. To determine the cause of the failure, we can investigate the dependencies of the asset. Here we see that the asset can receive power from one of two primary substations. Despite the apparent resilience in the network, we can see that both primary substations have been knocked offline by deep floodwater. The failure of these substations cascades to their dependencies, resulting in further failures across the network. Returning to the original asset, we can see that it supplies power to two sewage sites and a telephone exchange, both of which also lose power under this scenario. This demonstrates the ability of connected digital twins to assess the effect of different scenarios on individual assets and describe the cascade of failures across the combined heterogeneous infrastructure network. In the future, such digital twins could pull data from other sources, including live streams of data, improving their ability to represent the real world, allowing for more effective decision support across multiple sectors. Credo illustrates what can be achieved by sharing data across sectors and demonstrates how connected digital twins might be used to support better decision-making.
So we're obviously not the only ones in this space, and as you can see there, just a small part of bringing together what might be seen as connected digital twins, which really speaks to the heart of the Digital Twin Hub, Connected Places Catapult, the TRIB roadmap. You know, NVIDIA at the moment are working on their Earth 2 engine and the data in the Omniverse to support that. Google have a range of developer tools to help breach the gap between these macro climate models and the sort of micro detailed analytics. There's the Earth Visualization Engine component. There's also, of course, Esri's Living Atlas and all of the databases connected into their various systems. We need to bridge the gap between that and local forecasting so we can go from simulation to regulation and investment. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.